Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, we are once again reacting to some free agency news, and in this particular video, we are going to be discussing the Houston Rockets signing Christian Wood to a 3-year, $41 million deal. However, before I get too far into it, I want to remind you to leave a like and subscribe. I've been enjoying all the support that I've been receiving lately, and I hope to see that continue. Remember, it helps you out because you get all of my content in the sub box, and it helps me out because my channel continues to grow. So leave a like and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get into the video. The Houston Rockets signed Christian Wood, a big man who went to, I believe, UNLV. He is very skilled on the offensive end of the floor, has a really nice face-up game, and can score in that way. He's also a good three-point shooter for a big man, shot around 38% on about 2.5 attempts per game last season. So he's a credible floor spacer that's going to continue to add to this team's ability to shoot the three ball. We've seen it in the past. They shoot the ball at a higher clip than any other team, and Christian Wood is really going to fit into that identity. I'm assuming that they will hang on to Russell Westbrook and James Harden at the time of this video. It hasn't appeared that a deal is anywhere close to getting done with either of them. And I think that this signing is a significant step in making this team better. Christian Wood is debatably a top 125 player in the NBA. He's one of the more underrated players due to all of the stuff he's been through in his career. He's bounced all over, hasn't really found a home. Finally, he goes to Detroit, and after the Andre Drummond trade, gets a chance to show his offensive skill, puts up great numbers and even better advanced statistics, which is obviously something the Rockets love, and I'm sure is a large reason why they decided to sign him. This is money that they gave up Robert Covington to use, but they also did get that 2021 first-round pick in exchange. And I don't know that Christian Wood is as big of a downgrade from Robert Covington as some people are going to make it to be. And overall, I don't actually mind what the Rockets have done this offseason so far. I don't think it's been good, but I don't think that it's been as terrible as it once seemed. The overpay for the 60th overall pick was odd to me, and in reality, it was probably just to help pay off some of that Trevor Ariza contract that the Pistons took on and eventually forwarded to the Oklahoma City Thunder, as the Pistons and Thunder continue to be involved in every single trade that they possibly can, it seems. But with the Rockets here, they added a floor spacer who's going to very much boost their abilities on the offensive end of the floor, continue to allow them to improve. And this is a monstrous offensive team. You've got four guys around Russell Westbrook that can space the floor. And as we saw prior to the shutdown of the NBA season back in March, when Russell Westbrook was surrounded with four shooters after the Clint Capella trade, he was able to thrive. He had a few of the best months of his career. Maybe even he was playing the best basketball of his career. And we saw the Rockets actually play pretty well in those games. As Westbrook went, they went, and it looked like they actually had a chance to be a championship type contender. I actually thought that they had a shot at beating the Lakers, and I picked them to beat the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. So I was very high on this team, and although I do think Robert Covington is a big loss, Christian Wood is a similar type offensive talent that is going to continue to give them what they need on that end of the floor. He also can create for himself a bit better than Robert Covington can. So at times when Russell Westbrook and James Harden are off the court, he gives them another option to score the basketball. I think that he's going to be a super useful player for them, and it's really the best big man that James Harden's been able to play with. Well, actually, no. Clint Capella is pretty good too, so I'm not going to say that. But I also am interested to see what a James Harden Christian Wood pick and roll can look like. He can also run the pick and pop solidly, as he's a good three-point shooter, as I stated before. Overall, I think that this allows the Rockets to continue to play the way they want, with 5 shooters, or I guess 4 shooters plus Westbrook. And It also gives them a more traditional center on the defensive end of the floor where they're going to actually be able to match up with some of the more talented big guys in the Western Conference, such as Anthony Davis and Nikola Jokic. I'm not saying that Christian Wood could stop those guys, but he can at least give them a fighting chance in those particular matchups. The thing where this might come back to bite them is there's really no depth on this roster at this point. The starting lineup of Westbrook, Harden, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, and Christian Wood is very strong. You've got Westbrook, who is a top 20 player in the NBA still. He's an all NBA caliber talent, and when he's on his game, you've got one of the better players in the league. James Harden is clearly a top 10 player, one of the best scorers of all time, maybe the single best offensive player ever. That's going to continue to go on unless one of those two guys gets traded. They will continue to be one of the better backcourts in the NBA. Eric Gordon is a guy who fights on defense and uses his strength to his advantage on that end of the court. While being a streaky shooter on offense, he can have great nights that allow the Rockets to outperform expectations, but he also has nights where he plays poorly, and you wonder why they would ever even consider giving him a long-term deal capping off at $20 million in a season. And yeah, I think you can ask those questions even on nights where he's playing well. It was a weird contract. But off the bench is where it gets a bit sketchy. Daniel House is a good sixth man, and if he's still on the roster next season, which it's starting to appear he will be since he hasn't been traded yet, he gives them a good 3-and-D option off the bench. Ben McLemore is the same thing. Both of those guys are on very cheap deals, and they are both solid three-point shooters that play hard on the defensive end of the floor. David Nwaba is coming off of a serious injury, so that obviously brings some questions to the surface, but in the past he's shown some more credibility as a good perimeter defensive player, and that is certainly what the Rockets need alongside James Harden and Russell Westbrook. The last guy they have under contract right now is Chris Clemons, a young point guard who they are hopeful can develop. All right, I just had an interruption, so I kind of lost my train of thought, but I think I was talking about Chris Clemons. He's a young point guard, a smaller guy, but he has some talent as a shooter, ball handler, passer. Not much on defense because of his slight bit frame, but yeah, he's pretty much the only young player on this roster, so maybe they can flip him and make him into a rotation player in that way. Outside of those four guys, they really have nothing, and after signing Christian Wood to a signing trade, they're hard capped, which means they can't go over the salary cap, or no, they can't go over the luxury tax, which they weren't going to anyways. Tillman Fertitta wasn't going to pay that luxury tax bill, or as Kendrick Perkins calls him, Tillman Fertitta. So, yeah, he wasn't going to pay the luxury tax bill, so they weren't going to go over anyways. But they don't have a lot of room to fill out the rest of their roster, and they don't have much of a rotation at this point. They need to add some big men who can come off the bench and give them solid minutes. It's been rumored that they have been in discussions with Jeff Green, who gave them some really good minutes last season as a small ball center type. And they also signed, or not signed, have been in discussions with DeMarcus Cousins, who could come in, be a solid big man off the bench, who, when given touches, is a consistent scorer and is a good screen setter and rim runner. I don't love that fit as much as I love the Green fit, and I really think that he should be their next priority in free agency. They can't give out much more than the minimum, and I wouldn't be surprised if some team offered Jeff Green a larger contract than that. But I think the Rockets should definitely do what they can to keep Jeff Green around, because he's a very valuable player in their system. His ability as a small ball five is perfect alongside Harden and Westbrook, and he could also play some four, and he would be a great third big man for their rotation. After that, I don't know what else they can do in terms of signings. I don't have any other names off the top of my head. They can only sign minimum deals, really, so that's going to limit the type of player that they can bring in, but there's still some guards and wings on the market that could be interesting options. Overall, I'm a big fan of the Christian Wood signing, and I think it's something the Rockets need to be looking at as he complements Harden and Westbrook very well. Even if they do end up moving on from Harden and or Westbrook, he is a still pretty young player and could be a guy that they are using as part of a rebuild in the future. So I also think that they got a nice value on the contract. I was expecting him to get something in the $14 to $18 million range, and they got him for just under $14 million. So nice job by the Rockets. Good signing, and hopefully they can continue to make good decisions to fill out the rest of their roster in the remaining time of free agency. Let me know in the comment section below what you think of this signing. Was Christian Wood a good get for the Rockets, or would they have been better off keeping Robert Covington? Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. That's it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you all again very soon.